Hey homies, what's up? Ryan Wynn here with another episode of Late Night Inks. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that issue 4 of Gods and Gears is out. I am so excited. It's been in the hands of Peter, the publisher at Alterna, for the past week, and he's been shipping them out to everyone that's ordered, shops and homes and everything in between. And I got my issues today, which means they are going to be in the shop signed. We're going to have a collection signed. We're going to have a collector's case signed. We're going to have a display case with signed issues. We're going to have all sorts of options in the coming weeks. If you're watching this in the past or in the present, you can find a link down below to my shop and get a hold of those. But for now, it's time for this and Late Night Inks.
Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rules, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Doing it our way.
All right, everybody, welcome to the show. This is Late Night Inks, the ink along show where you can download the image. There's a link below. You can print it up. You can ink along with me at your own leisure, or try to keep up with my rapid pace. So what we have here tonight, our guests, Billy Batson and Captain Marvel, or as he is now known, Shazam. We're going to start with our trusty blue-barreled zebra brush marker, and we probably will be getting into a little bit of trouble with our Raphael 8404 size 2, and links for those are down below as well if you want to try out those tools. So we're going to go in and do the eyes first because that's how the inking likes to operate. Now this is a fairly worn zebra brush marker. I don't actually like them when they're brand new except for some very fine details. I like that you can get a really fine tip from it, but then eventually I like that the fine tip wears down and you can still get a thin line, but you can get, it's like a nice, it's almost like a soft pencil lead. It's like a nice, steady weighted line. And what I like about these markers is that they are somewhere between a pencil and a nib. And by nib, I mean a metal mapping pen that's punched out of metal and folded around, and you dip it in ink. We are going to get into those. I have a series that I want to develop that focuses a little bit on breaking down the different tools. Other people have done great jobs at that already. If you're watching inking videos on YouTube, you should, if you aren't already, be watching Richard Friend videos. He's a longtime industry vet that inked at Wildstorm and is currently inking at DC, and he's kind of inked everywhere in between and around. Alright, so we got our eyes done first. Excuse me. Got our reflections, our pupils, got these this little ridge part that comes down into the nose. Now, I'm a big fan of Shazam over Superman. I don't really have a problem with Superman, but I always really enjoyed the Shazam stories more, and I really enjoyed the stuff from well before my time. Jerry Ordway's done some great modern stuff and kind of updated the mythology in a great way, and I love those. I think that was sort of my gateway into it. And then I found the old C.C. Beck stuff. Now, C.C. Beck was one of the creators with Bill Parker, and but then Otto Bender came on to do some of the writing, and I really like the Otto Bender and C.C. Beck stuff. It's very creative. The Monster Society is the bad guys is a lot of fun. They sort of have a Kirby sense to them where they're unafraid of their own imagination. So they're not afraid to get wacky and weird with stuff. All right, we're working a little backwards because that's what happens when the inking starts yapping. I want to do the eyes first, and then I usually want to do the contours. Now, I do think I want to come back and do the hair with a brush. So we're going to go ahead and do Billy's beanie right now. So the deal is that Billy says the word Shazam, and he turns into Captain Marvel, or as he is now known, Shazam. Billy stumbled upon an old wizard dude, and the wizard dude was like, "Hey, yo, Billy, you got to help me out. The world's full of bad things, like the 7 deadly sins, and if you say all the names of these old Greek gods and whatnot, then my power can come through you, and we can beat up the bad guys together." So he says the word Shazam, which, let me see if I can get this right, is, what is it? It's Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus for the Z, Achilles, and Mercury. Did I get that right? I don't know. I might have messed up one of the names. Sometimes I don't know. When I'm inking, it's hard for me to be thinking, but I do my best. But he says those names, and each one of them gives him a separate sort of ability and strength. All of their powers combined, and he is Shazam. Now, the original version, it wasn't... Billy didn't retain his memory. It sort of became the wizard in the man's body. I actually kind of prefer him maintaining his child brain, whatever. I like the new version, like the movie was. And I really enjoyed the movie. I'm not, as I often say, I'm not that big into the comic book movies. I'm a comic book fan, and I like movies a lot, but I just don't really like the crossing over of the two. But I really enjoyed Shazam. They really paid a lot of respect to the medium and the creators and the creation itself. And I thought that was cool. And I really enjoyed how they brought in the family. That was kind of fun. It's definitely a family film. It's not like, Watchmen or anything like that. They're not doing anything edgy with that. All right, so his other eyebrow is sort of hidden under his hair, and as I said, I kind of want to do his hair with a brush. So we're going to go in and fill his eyebrows in. And then I gave gave little zigzags here. I'm going to go from top to bottom with those. And those sort of represent the knitting in his beanie. And sometimes beanies have a different knitting pattern for the bottom part that folds over than it does for the more stretchy top. So we're going to do that, and we've got a few little render lines here on the lip to kind of give it shape. All right, so we're going to close up the marker for a minute. I'm going to break out Stinger, my favorite brush right now. Right, we're dipping the brush about halfway to 2/3. Sort of flick it on the inside of the jar to sharpen the edge. And then rotate this around. Now the ink I'm using, which is, it's a Black India ink by Rapidograph. It doesn't mix that well with the brush marker ink. So when I touch where the line is, where I use the brush marker, it tends to gum up on the end. So I try not to do that too much. If I end up using these tools together, I try to avoid making these inks run over. It's not that bad. It just sort of creates a dry brush effect, and I do kind of like it for the hair. So I try to kind of make use of it and also not let it hinder me. Because you can have a little bit, I like to have slick lines for hair, but it's okay to have those be dry. Like the confidence of the line should be thick, if that makes sense. And always feel free to be a little weighted on the underside of things. All right, there we go. I'm going to dip the brush again. I'm going to take a sip of water myself. We are doing good on time, too. I didn't yammer too much in the beginning, I don't think. Heavy that up. All right, as usual, we're going to find a place to push black against white with the hair like this, and we'll create a little reflection on the hair that is sticking out, and then it's got a little bit of a shadow where it goes and tucks under the beanie, and we can go a little heavier where it tucks behind his ears and stuff like that. And then for the back here, I think we're going to do some thin lines like that. We're going to slowly get a little heavier, and then this will be really heavy under here. Now we got to clean up that line. And I don't like mixing those inks, but I got the brush going right here. There we go. And we'll do the same thing over here. We're going to go nice and heavy on these undersides and on the furthest under. A solid black back there. And then we will go thinner as we come to the top on that piece, and then we'll go heavy there and do one thin one there. And then again here, we're going to go from the tips of the hair, we're going to bring the black to sort of a middle area, and then heavy where it goes behind his ears. And then we'll do another bit that not only creates the shadow under the beanie, but it helps create that little bit of a highlight that goes across there. Oh, let's get back in frame. Hope we were in frame there. All right, we'll give the brush a rinse because we want to get the pen ink off of there. Now that's a result of the pen being dye-based and this India ink being like water-based. It's sort of think of it as oil and water not mixing well. All right, freshened up that brush. Let's see. Oh, you know what? We're going to actually put the brush aside. I'm going to wash it off again. We're going to go back and do the same process on the good old captain here. Now, I should have done some research and gotten the actors' names and stuff so I could talk about the movie right and things and how it compared with the comics, but there's a bunch of YouTube videos already for that. Now, let's get technical for a second. Sometimes I hold the pen like this, sometimes I hold the pen like this. That is actually, I feel more secure like this, and it's also to break up the repetitiveness so that my hand is changing shape a little bit. I also, if I'm doing something and I want the pen more upright, I'll hold it like this, and if I'm pulling back just a little bit, I'll have the middle finger added there as well. So that's just stuff you can play around with and see if you like something more than the other. Sometimes for creating various lines, it helps to figure that kind of stuff out, especially if you're, you know, it doesn't matter if you're new to inking or not. All right, going really strong on those jawbones. Like really strong. All right, his eyes don't have little pupils or anything, so I wasn't doing them first, but just out of habit, we'll do the eyes first. There's that little tear duct part. He's sort of always got a jolly look with his eyes squinting. And that's also because he's partially based on a certain actor from the 30s and 40s and then 50s and 60s. I guess he was around for a while. I think his name was Fred Ward. I'm not sure. Somebody watching will be able to correct me on that. But he sort of had that look to him, and C.C. Beck based it on that actor. This is long before Brian Hitch based, his Ultimates characters on real life actors. So the practice of that goes back to the 30s and 40s. And yeah, Captain Marvel, Shazam, all that stuff goes back to 1940, I think, was the year it was created. Okay, we're gonna make sure this is dry. You never want to plop down in wet ink territory. Now we can go bold, and when you got to do these big curve lines, you don't have to do them all at once. You can go back over it all at once you've built it up if you want, but you can build and sculpt these lines. Especially if you're not working on deadline, you can take the time to build up lines if you want to do that. we go. My marker's getting a little bit dry. This might be the last time I use this particular one, but I still like the line I'm getting from it. So we're gonna finish it out. You know what? I forgot the little chin dimple there that they both have. So I do recommend, if you want to get into Shazam, or if you like the movie and you want to see more, there are like some cheap black and white collections that you can get. I think they're called Showcase from DC. I recommend those. They're usually like $10, and you really get to enjoy CC Beck's art. Oh, I forgot. We gave Billy some freckles. I want to add those in. I usually just put freckles just on the highlights of the cheekbones. That tends to work. So we've got our hair we're going to do here, and I do a bit of an anime thing with the hair. And you'll notice I didn't break out the brush. I'm having a lot of fun with this marker, and if it's the end for this marker, I want to have as much fun as possible with it. I'm getting some good lines. They're just coming out a little dry, and like I said, that's okay with hair as long as the lines are confident. That's all that matters. So I like to break up the hair into these pieces that sort of resemble these shapes. It's almost like a flame shape or a teardrop. And you can break up your hair into any variation of that. And I always call it my anime hair, because that's kind of where I got the idea from 4 years ago. And then I sort of learned that's just how everyone breaks up hair. Because I was a little bit self-taught and a little bit taught by artists that I apprenticed for, so I was always learning in different various ways and not always proper techniques. All right, so I do a harder line around the hair here because that's sort of the skull and stuff is sort of foreshortened in front of the hairline. But then when I get up to places like this, I like to break up the lines a little and not make it look like a wig that's just pulled over his head. All right, next we're gonna outline these eyebrows. Now, you don't have to trace perfectly over any of the pencil lines on the printed up file. You can either think of them as suggestions. Don't give yourself the stress of like you have to trace it perfectly or it has to be a certain way or thick here or thin there. Don't worry about that stuff unless you're a little more advanced. But even then, if you're just here to have fun a little and learn a little more about inking, just be lighthearted about it. There's a way to push yourself to be better, and there's a way to stress yourself out about it. You know, you don't want to be too lax to the point where you're not learning anything, but you also don't want to feel like every line has to be perfect when you're 3 weeks into inking or anything like that. All right, got a little bit of rendering there on his nose. I've got a little rendering here to do on those cheekbones, just sort of classic comic book rendering. We'll get these dimples in here, bloops and bloops. And I always give a goofy smile to my Captain Marvels. Kind of goes up in the middle like that. We'll swoop under for the lip, and we'll swoop the other direction for his chin line, and maybe give a second little one there. And then we've got some rendering. Heavy it up right under that lip. Can round it out like that. And then thick to thin lines breaking up just like that. We'll give him one more. I forget what this thing is called there. We'll give him one more of those, and then close up the marker, break out the brush again. You dip your brush 2/3 to halfway, flick it on the inside of the jar, maybe have a scratch paper on the side that you can wipe a little of the excess ink off of. And then we are going to push this black shadow underneath here. And And normally I would have done this hair, these outlines with the brush too, so I wouldn't be risking the ink mix, like I said, to avoid, but do as I say, not as I do. But seem to be having success. The ink is wet enough, I'm moving through fast enough, and we're not really crossing over too much with the other ink. So we pushed that black shape from that side to this side. All right, we're gonna dip again. Sharpen stinger up on the inside of the jar, and then we're gonna push back. And this black shape pushing back from the outside edge will help us create the highlight around his hair. And the bits in the back will be a little more solid. And again, from the tips of his little wisps of hair, we'll make those black, and we will bring it in like this. Now remember, you don't have to follow these lines perfectly. You can make this all solid black if you want. You can do kind of any variation of what we're doing here, as long as you're having fun and as long as you're kind of learning as you go. All right, so I want to soften up this transition here, so I'm going to do some thin to thick lines. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to break up that harsh white to black transition there and have it blend down. And there we go. Billy, the captain. Now I'm going to add a little water to the brush. I also keep a paper towel right next to my ink jar that I wipe a little bit of the excess water off. Drink a little water myself. We're doing pretty good on time. I usually don't like to go much past 20 minutes, but we'll be wrapping it up here in just a minute. Now these aren't ruled out with a ruler or a French curve. They have a little bit of a curve to them. Feel free to run them straight if you'd like to. Again, you don't have to do exactly the line that is there. Not at first. At first, allow yourself the mistake, and allow yourself to do crossovers like this, like go past the lines a little. You don't have to look like you're a printer. I want to tuck that one in a little and get it away from that dimple in his chin, but might be too much of a tangent. Line up your shot and take it. Line up your shot. Oh, let's get in shot. Line it up. Bam. Line it up. Shazam. And then this line is dry, so we can cut over here. And cut over here. And there we go. I inked it. You inked it. Let's go ahead and sign it. Breaking out the old marker again. I'm going to sign it on this side tonight. You go ahead and sign it right below. And if you'd like me to take a look at what you did or showcase it here in a future video, go ahead and hit me up at Ryan Wynn on Twitter or down below, however you like to do it. So until next time, oh, you know what? I almost forgot. I have a big Shazam piece I'm working on, and I did tell a few of you that I would show it tonight, but I'm going to save that for a separate video. So until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and take it easy.
And if you haven't already, head over to alternaaccess.com and check out the book I wrote, Gods and Gears, with art by Dean Kotz and letters by Wes Loker. Issue 4 is out soon.
Stupid cat.